So in this section of the video, we're going to talk about the different kinds of dermal fillers and also some of the extra accessories, if you like, that we can use when we're working with dermal fillers and other aesthetic products. So I've broken down the products into 3 different sections, and it's broken down into what I would consider the less expensive products. And I'm not going to call them cheap, because I think once you go below these products, then you're getting into the level of what we would consider cheap. And then the medium range, and then the more expensive products. And in my particular clinics, I use a range of all 3 of these different areas of product, different price ranges of products. And it's not always because someone wants something cheap or someone wants something more expensive. Sometimes it's just because a particular brand or a particular blend or a particular mix of products works better in a particular scenario than another one does. But first of all, let's just talk them through in the sections that I've got them laid out. So in what I would consider the less expensive products are the products that are mainly from Asia. So they're either going to be from China or Korea, and that's typically what separates out the different price points in the product ranges. So first of all, we will talk about Revelax, because for a very long time Revelax was the most popular product probably that was being used around the UK. Now, when Revelax bought their product out, and they're a Korean based product, they bought it out at a time when there wasn't really anything that was in that kind of slightly lesser price point. And they were extremely successful because they bought out what wasn't a cheap rubbish product, but was actually a good product, but at a very, very good price point. And these products I'm going to talk about in this less expensive area are typically around the sort of £35 to £50 per 1 milliliter or 1.1 milliliter of product. And the way that Revelax branded their product had a lot to do with their success, because with Revelax they have 3 different variations of the product. They have a deep, which is probably the most commonly used one, which is generally for lips. This is where we would typically use this product. We've got fine, which is typically used for fine lines and wrinkles. And then we have one which is called Sub-Q, which when you hear that name, you typically think subcutaneous, which means that we're going to be using this like deeply under the skin, typically down to bone. And this would be for your areas like your cheeks, your jaw and your chin, for example, on this particular course. But even when you get into the more advanced areas, we would use that on things like the nose, for example, or maybe even the temples or other areas where you need that level of product. Now, it's not really the area of the face where these products differentiate themselves from one another. It's actually the G prime of the product itself. And G prime is a terminology which is typically associated with the viscosity of the product. That means how thick it is. And the higher the G prime, the thicker the product. And what we really want to do is associate the correct G prime to the correct area of the face. Now, when we're working with very, very soft areas, like for example the lips and underneath the skin, we want to use a low G prime, low viscosity product, so one that is typically thinner. So that would be your fine and your deep in terms of Revelax's branding of their individual products. Now, with all of these products, they all typically have a very similar level of hyaluronic acid inside the product. So you'll find with Revelax, for example, and even with Regenivue and EPTQ, which are other products in this price point, they are all 24 milligrams of hyaluronic acid per milliliter. But the level of hyaluronic acid inside the product does not determine how thick that product is. What determines how thick it is the G prime or how it's cross-linked. So even though, for example, if we pick up Revelax Fine, which is a very thin product, and we pick up Revelax Sub-Q, which is a very thick, dense product, even though they both have 24 milligrams per milliliter of hyaluronic acid, Fine is very thin and almost runny, and Sub-Q is very thick and kind of gel-like. Now, the way that they differentiate between these thicknesses or viscosities when they're making it is by the way they cross-link the product. So don't always look at the value of hyaluronic acid and think that the higher level of hyaluronic acid, the thicker the product is, because that doesn't necessarily ring true. So Revelax, in my opinion, would probably be the better of the less expensive products because I've used it a lot. It's been hugely used throughout the UK and the world, in fact. You can get it with lidocaine, which is the way that it's typically used, which is why you get the 1.1 0.1 of lidocaine and 1 milliliter of product. And the way that they branded these products, making it so simple with just 3, was a real part of their initial success. And a lot of the products around that price point have followed suit. So with Regenivue, for example, which again is another Asian product, it still has 24 milligrams of hyaluronic acid per milliliter, and they still have a deep and a sub-Q and also a fine as well. So you can look at those product names and use them in exactly the same way that you would with the Revelax product. So again, sub-Q, they call it sub-Q plus. That would be used for, in your case, the cheeks, the jaw and the chin, and then the deep plus would be where you're going to use it for your lips. And once you start getting into the more advanced areas, then you would start to use them in slightly different places as well. Now, EPTQ, which again are another Asian company, they went down a slightly different route in terms of their naming of their individual products. They went with S100, S300 and S500. S100 is the equivalent to fine, S300 is the equivalent to deep, and S500 is the equivalent to sub-Q. So just bear that in mind if you want to use the EPTQ products. Now, my personal favourite for the less expensive product, like I said, is Revelax. It's been used a lot, it's got a good history, you know what you're getting with Revelax. My second favourite would be Regenivue because I find that to be most like Revelax. EPTQ, I have used it, but it's definitely not one of my favourites. I find the 300, which you're meant to use for lips, because that's the equivalent to deep, just a little bit viscous, a little bit thick, and a little bit of a high G prime. But again, all of these products, Regenivue, EPTQ, Revelax, and there are others as well. Eloquence, for example, is another good product at this price point. They're all 24 milligrams per milliliter, and they all maintain that 3 different type of product, the fine, deep and sub-Q, or 100, 300, 500 in the case of EPTQ. If you're starting out, these are going to be the products that you're going to start working with initially, because it's going to be the price point that your customers, when you're first starting, are going to want to pay. If you use these products, which cost sort of around the £40 to £50 mark, and you charge £150, for example, which is a fairly good price point to start out with, then you're still going to be making, in the region of £100 profit per client that you're going to do. If you, when you started out, you were to go with something like Juvederm Ultra 3, for example, which is more in the sort of £80, £90 price bracket, that means that you're going to be making significantly less money. So you could take the approach that you're going to earn less money and use fantastic product right from the start, or more expensive product right from the start. Or if you want to maximize your profit, you would roll with, potentially one of these sort of like slightly less expensive products. That's completely up to you how you would go about doing that. But do always bear in mind that when you use the more expensive products, you're either going to make less profit at the same price point, or you're going to have to charge them more money. It's completely up to you which way around that you would like to do it. But what I will say is that when you're first starting out, it's going to be very difficult to charge, for example, £250 per milliliter when you've only got 1 or 2 pictures on your page, for example. However, if you've got an established beauty or aesthetics business and you've got an existing client base that trusts you, then there is maybe more potential to start out initially charging that higher price point. Now let's talk a little bit about Teoxane. Teoxane have a whole range of products in the same way that a lot of the more expensive brands do. And in a way, it is to their detriment because people find it very, very confusing understanding what all the different products are from these more expensive manufacturers. The reason they do that is because they like to have a more specific product for a more specific task. And even in some cases, multiple products for the same task. So, for example, with Juvederm and Teoxane, they've probably got in the region of 10 to 20 products inside their product range, and that would go the same for other products. Restylane, for example, have a lot of different products in their range, and they're more of an expensive brand. Belotero are the same thing. So you do tend to find that as you step up through the more expensive products, they do have a wider range that is harder to understand. Now, the ones that I use in the Teoxane range are really threefold. I use Teoxane Teosil RHA Kiss, which is their most advanced, most modern lip filler product. That's generally what you'd use it for, hence the Kiss name. And I like this product a lot because it's a very, very good product. This one 24 milligrams per milliliter, but what I like about this the most is that it comes in a 0.7 milliliter format. And that's a great amount of product because some people are stuck between whether they want half a milliliter of product or 1 milliliter of product. And if they are in that kind of middle ground and they can't decide, then the RHA Kiss is going to be the perfect option for them. And sometimes it can finish a conversation around that nice and quickly, and you can get on and do your work. The outcome is absolutely fantastic and the product is fantastic as well. Teoxane is a Swiss company, so even by saying the fact that they're Swiss, it kind of gives an interpretation of higher quality. What we also have is the Teosil Kiss, which is in their Pure Sense range rather than the RHA range. This is slightly considered a kind of slightly lesser product than the RHA Kiss, but still a fantastic product. This comes in a 1.1 milliliter format if you buy it with lidocaine. This product is probably the one that I know of that's got the highest level of hyaluronic acid, 25 milligrams per milliliter against the 23 of the RHA Kiss or the 24 of the less expensive products that we spoke about earlier. And again, this is a fantastic product. I would use this more on younger people because of the high levels of hyaluronic acid. It gives a bigger hydrophilic lift, hydrophilic rise, and they're going to end up with a kind of more plump, more youthful look. RHA Kiss, I'd be happy to use that across the age range. Then we've got Redensity 2. Redensity 2 doesn't necessarily apply to the foundation course, but Redensity 2 is the only product I would ever use for tear trough, and that's the only thing that I ever typically use it for. It's got very low levels of hyaluronic acid, only 15 milligrams per milliliter, and the reason for that is because there's a high concentration of water in the tear trough area. If you was to use something like a Revelax or any of these other products with high levels of hyaluronic acid, once that attracts water with its hydrophilic properties, it's going to start to puff up and you're going to end up with a puffy area underneath the eye, which is obviously not what we want. So Redensity 2 is the only licensed product for tear trough, and it's the only one I would ever use there. These more expensive products from Teoxane and also from Juvederm typically come in a 2 product package. So in here you get 2 lots of 1.1 milliliter worth of product. Another product I use from Teoxane in the Teosil range, again in the Pure Sense range, is the Redensity 1. Redensity 1 is an advanced skin booster that sits alongside products like Profhilo or Sunicos, for example. And this is not cross-linked with BDDE, so a significantly less chance of vascular occlusion, even if you were to do an intra-arterial injection. However, if you were to obviously press huge amounts in, it is still potentially possible. And so this is an advanced skin booster. I love this one because it's made from Teoxane, which are obviously a very well respected company for hyaluronic acid based filler, and also because you can buy it in this version, which is a 3 milliliter syringe with lidocaine, which is very unusual for skin boosters to come in that kind of format. Now, on to my favourite brand, which is Juvederm. The main 2 that I use from Juvederm, which applies to our foundation course, would be Ultra Smile. Ultra Smile and Ultra 3. Ultra Smile comes in a 0.5 milliliter format. Really nice syringes. Also comes with TSK needles as well, which are very high quality needles, which we're going to talk about shortly, and a really nice syringe, which is very nice to use. Now, Ultra Smile comes in a 0.55 milliliter format, which means this is your half milliliter solution, for example, when people just want half a milliliter. Ultra 3 is absolutely an identical product to Ultra Smile. Comes in the same syringe, obviously just a little bit larger. Same needles, although a 27 gauge instead of a 30 gauge like you get with the half mil. but the Ultra 3 is 1.1 milliliter. So Ultra 3 for 1 mil and Ultra Smile for half a mil. These products are spectacularly soft. They are absolutely incredibly nice feeling and looking inside the lip for any age group, but they are significantly more expensive than some of the other products that we spoke about earlier. Ultra 3 is typically around the 80 to 90 pound price point for 1 milliliter, and then Ultra Smile is about 60 pounds for half a milliliter. But what I like to use typically is Ultra Smile for my half mil, RHA Kiss for my 0.7 mil, which is for those people that are kind of undecided whether they want one or the other, and then Ultra 3 would be my full 1 milliliter lip solution. And these products are from France, so again a European country, and because they are made by Allergan, who are essentially the founders of both dermal fillers and Botox itself, they are a very, very well respected brand, huge amounts of history, huge amounts of success and knowledge that goes around with having used these products. There's a lot of experience from other people which you can look back on if you have any kind of problems or complications, and probably the most trusted product when it comes to dermal filler. So they're just a group of the fillers that I personally would use and recommend. You can pick the price point that you want or the application that you want for the particular area, and you'd be, completely comfortable using all these products. I would definitely recommend all of them. So let's just talk about a couple of other little accessories that we can also use. Now, post-procedure, we've got two things that I use a lot. I personally use this pink bubbly Vaseline for the lips to just gloss them up and make them look nice and shiny for your photos. And then I also use a product again from Teoxane, who make these fillers, which is actually called post-procedure. And this product includes some very, very important chemicals, amongst which there are arnica, which is obviously going to help a lot with bruising. We've got aloe vera, which is nice and soothing and hydrating, and then we've also got chlorhexidine as well, which is going to clean the skin thoroughly as well. So these two products I would definitely recommend to have in your kit bag at all times and apply them post-procedure. Now, with the less expensive products, for example, Revelax or Regeniview, they also come with their own needles, as most dermal fillers do. Now, Revelax actually come with a sort of medium quality needle, which again is another reason why I like Revelax. But when you start getting into Regeniview, EPTQ and Eloquence, they come with a lot cheaper needle, a much less quality needle than even Revelax does. Once you start stepping up into the realms of Juvederm, they come with TSK needles, which are the highest quality. Teosil and Teoxane come with a kind of sort of medium to high quality level needles, so they're fine to use as well. However, when I do use these less expensive brands, I actually go out and purchase my own individual needles to use with those products. I always use TSK needles. My personal preference is a 30 gauge. Nearly all of these fillers that we've gone through today use a 27 gauge needle. The higher the number, the thinner the needle. I like to use a really thin needle, and I like to use the one from TSK, which is a 30 gauge, but you can also get a 27 gauge as well from TSK as well. So whatever size you would like, if you'd like to use a higher quality needle, go to TSK, which you can buy from any of the kind of main outlets in the UK, Reliable Medicare for example, and get yourself some more expensive needles, because they will be sharper, which means less pain, and they'll also do a better job of what it is that you're trying to do as well. So I would highly recommend going and getting yourself some TSK needles. Initially, I would match the size to the ones that you're using inside the packet, but as you progress, maybe you'd like to sort of improve the outcome of your lips, you can step up to a 30 gauge needle, but that does make the injections significantly more difficult. So that's our section on dermal fillers and some of the accessories that we can use as well. We will see you in the next module.